Hi, my name is Jan Kame. I am the District Director for the Vigo County Soil and Water Conservation Office here in Terre Haute, Indiana. Today I'm just going to explain a little bit about the Clean Water Indiana grant that we just received from the Indiana State Department of Agriculture. On October the 6th, we received a letter stating we had received $50,000 to help implement and put conservation on the ground in the Otter Creek watershed. Our main reason for putting this grant together was with Clay County Soil and Water as well. This grant will cover a small portion of Park County, Vigo County, and Clay counties in the upper Otter Creek watershed where the Lost Creek is. That actually appears on the 303D list, which is an impaired body water list, which means that there is nutrients and sedimentation that has gotten into this creek, and it is starting to die out some of the macroinvertebrates in that water. So we wrote this grant to help with the Wabash Land Conservancy, who has actually received a grant from the 319 through IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And our main goal is to hit the non-critical areas of the watershed, and her grant is for the critical areas. We are going to be offering to the landowners small, backyard ag or large farm ag, cover crops. We will be doing cover crops at $20 an acre, and we will go up to 150 acres on that per applicant. We also will be offering fence rows to keep cattle out of the creeks and the streams to help with the sediment and then the nutrients from that as well. Some of the other things that we are going to be offering would be field borders. We have livestock access controls. We have HUEPs, which is a heavy use protection pad for the cattle in the pasture lands. This actually will keep the erosion and the sediments and all that on the actual farm ground and not letting it transport across ground into the creeks itself. So a little bit about the Clean Water Indiana grant. Most of these grants are utilized by the soil and water conservation districts here in our Indiana state. However, there are some non-traditional partners who would get a grant, such as the Parks Department, if they wanted to do a big pollinator or something like that. So it is a competitive grant. We actually have a grant with a CWI from last year as well. We have a 23 county grant, which we did cover crops in Vigo County. We had 4 participants for that. So that worked out real well with them. Now this year we'll be able to offer such a wide more variety. We'll be able to give you filter strips. We can do critical area plantings. We could help you with livestock, stream crossings. But the most important thing is probably just anything that we can keep any kind of rooting system in the ground to keep that erosion and sediment from entering those water bodies. We would be offering this grant to a landowner at 75% cost share. We would pay the 75%, the landowner would come up with the 25%. So that would definitely make it a lot more feasible and a lot more easy for people to be able to do this, is because of the finances on this. Again, we will be taking applications, and we are going to do it on a point system. So not that we're going to exclude anybody at all, but we are really trying to reach out to new producers as far as new ag or landowners that have never, participated in a kind of a natural resource program here. So our point system would be then, one, pretty much if you've never had any kind of work as far as programs with NRCS or the USDA, so you'll get additional points for that, for being a new person to come into conservation. So that's how it will be ranked. And again, like I said, we will be doing Clay and Vigo counties. So those applications will be put together and they will be ranked at that point. Okay, a watershed is actually just it's just your land and how it all comes down to an area. So wherever the precipitation falls, wherever that water runs to, it's going to run to one main area, and that would be your watershed. We have a really large map of the Otter Creek watershed that we would be able to give out to anybody if they had any question on whether they lived in that area or not, and that they would be available to do an application. we definitely would have them contact Clay or Vigo County. We would send them a map with the application and answer any questions that they might have at that time. And again, I think that people don't understand the need for the rooting system of any kind of vegetation we're putting on the ground. Cover crops, grass seed, native pollinators, anything that we can put that has a great rooting system into the ground, it'll hold the particles of the soils together. That will keep the erosion from happening, which will keep the sedimentation out of the creeks. So our biggest thing is keeping our rooting system and keeping the ground covered with vegetation. We lose soil abundantly by and it takes, it could take 1,000 years to produce just an inch of soil again. Once you lose that topsoil, you don't regain that for years and years and years. So that's why it's so important just to keep all the vegetation in the ground covered. I would love for people to, we did put this in the paper. We are going to start actually contacting the landowners in the non-critical area of the watershed by phone. We're going to invite them to a meet and greet, and then we will be able to explain what we're doing, explain the process of the application and how that would work. So right now we are helping with the Wabash Land Conservancy grant as far as once someone has put in a best management practice such as a cover crop or they put in a heavy use protection pad for their cattle, it is our job as soil and water to go out to inspect that site to make sure that the growth has happened with the vegetation or that the HUAP is in place and meets all specifications. So we are helping with her grant as well by doing the site reviews to make sure that everything is in place in order to be paid.